The Council of Discord. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was a marvel of architecture and engineering, its walls shimmering with holographic displays that depicted various star systems and their inhabitants. Yet today, it felt more like a pressure cooker than a place of diplomacy. As representatives from across the galaxy gathered in their respective platforms, a palpable tension hung in the air. Ambassador Tariq Lan stood at his podium, his heart racing as he prepared to address the assembly. He was a tall figure with sharp features and piercing blue eyes that seemed to absorb every detail around him. Today was crucial. He had been tasked with presenting humanity's grievances against the Council's inaction regarding recent attacks on human colonies. Honored delegates, he began, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding him. We gather here today not just as representatives of our species but as custodians of peace in this galaxy. His words were met with murmurs and skeptical glances from various factions present. Supreme Commander Vex Tharn of the Drachnid Imperium leaned forward on his platform, his reptilian eyes narrowing as he interrupted. Peace? Your kind has been anything but peaceful in your expansion efforts across the Orion Arm. Tariq felt a surge of frustration but maintained his composure. We are not here to discuss our expansion policies but rather to address unprovoked attacks on our settlements. The recent incident at Viridian Prime resulted in significant casualties. Casualties that could have been avoided had your people adhered to established territorial boundaries, Vex Tharn retorted, his voice dripping with condescension. Delegate Mira Solon from the Ilari Alliance raised her hand for silence. Her ethereal presence commanded attention as she spoke softly yet firmly. Let us not devolve into accusations. We must consider all perspectives if we are to find a resolution. Tariq seized this moment to press on. We have provided documentation, evidence of repeated violations against our territories by your fleets. The Federation cannot ignore these incidents any longer. The chamber erupted into chaos as representatives began shouting over one another. The Morati hive clusters clicked their mandibles in disapproval while members of the Quantum Consciousness Collective emitted waves of discontent through their energy forms. Order! Order! Boomed first speaker Thaler Knox, his crystalline form flickering with authority as he attempted to regain control over the assembly. We will hear all sides before reaching any conclusions. Tariq felt his patience waning as he watched the council members squabble like children in a playground rather than leaders responsible for maintaining galactic peace. He had witnessed this behavior far too often, bureaucratic blindness that prioritized politics over genuine concern for lives lost. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, First Speaker Knox gestured for silence once more and turned his attention back to Tariq. Ambassador Lan, you may continue. Taking a deep breath, Tariq pressed forward with renewed determination. The evidence is clear, we have been patient for too long while our colonies suffer under constant threat. If we do not act now, your patience is irrelevant. Vex Tharn interjected again, his scales shimmering with indignation. The strong survive, weakness is punished. Tariq's heart raced at those words, they echoed through him like an ominous warning bell. Humanity had shown remarkable restraint amidst escalating provocations from other species, but how much longer could they endure? Honored delegates, he said slowly, choosing each word carefully. Humanity's patience is not infinite. He paused to let that sink in before continuing with intensity in his voice. If this council continues to ignore our pleas for justice and protection. What are you suggesting? Mira Solon asked cautiously. I am suggesting that we will take matters into our own hands, Tariq declared boldly. A wave of shock rippled through the chamber as representatives exchanged incredulous glances and whispered among themselves. Are you threatening this council? Vex Tharn hissed incredulously. No, Tariq replied firmly but calmly. I am informing you that we are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. His gaze swept across the assembly before landing on First Speaker Knox once more. The silence that followed was deafening, even the translator drones hovering nearby seemed to hold their breath in anticipation. First Speaker Knox finally broke the stillness with a wave of his hand. "We will take your concerns under advisement and reconvene tomorrow for further discussion." As Tarek stepped down from his podium, he could feel eyes boring into him, some filled with disdain while others held curiosity or fear. He made his way back to his delegation's platform where his colleagues awaited him with anxious expressions. "What have you done?" one whispered urgently. "I've done what needed to be done," Tarek replied resolutely. "We can no longer sit idly by while our people suffer." As they exited the chamber together, tension crackled in the air around them like static electricity before a storm that would soon break upon them all. The meeting had ended without resolution. It was merely a prelude to what lay ahead, a reckoning that would shatter alliances and reshape destinies throughout the galaxy. In that moment, Tarek knew one thing for certain: humanity's patience had reached its breaking point, and soon enough, everyone would feel its consequences reverberate across stars far beyond their comprehension. The spark of rebellion. On the human colony of Viridian Prime, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the bustling settlement as Captain Alira Voss prepared her crew for an impending mission. The colony had become a focal point of conflict, and Alira felt the weight of responsibility resting heavily on her shoulders. Alira was a seasoned officer, known for her tactical brilliance and unwavering resolve. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight bun, and her piercing green eyes scanned the control room filled with her crew. They were a diverse group, each with their own strengths and backgrounds, but united in their determination to protect their home. "All right, team," Alira began, her voice steady despite the palpable anxiety in the room. "We've received reports of increased Drachnid activity near our mining operations. We can't afford to sit back any longer. We need to show them that we will not be intimidated." Commander Yarrick Finn, her second-in-command, nodded in agreement. He was a tall man with a rugged demeanor and a fierce loyalty to his captain. "We've been on the defensive for too long. It's time we take the fight to them." Alira appreciated Jarrek's enthusiasm but knew they had to be cautious. "I want us to gather intelligence first. We need to know exactly what we're up against before we engage." The crew murmured in agreement, though Alira could sense an undercurrent of frustration among them. They had all witnessed the Council's inaction and felt the sting of betrayal from their supposed allies in the Galactic Federation. The humans had been patient, but patience was wearing thin. The plan unfolds. As the crew prepared for their mission, engineer Rhea Talon worked diligently at her station, checking the ship's systems and ensuring everything was in optimal condition. Rhea was known for her ingenuity and resourcefulness. She could fix just about anything thrown her way. "Captain," Rhea called out as she adjusted some controls. "I've modified our sensors to detect any cloaked ships in the area. If they're planning an ambush, we'll know about it before they get too close." "Good work, Rhea," Alira replied with a nod. "We'll need every advantage we can get." As they finalized their preparations, Alira couldn't shake off a feeling of unease that settled in her gut. The galaxy was changing rapidly, and humanity's place within it felt increasingly precarious. She understood that their next move could either solidify their position or lead them down a path of destruction. The crew gathered around a holographic map of Viridian Prime and its surrounding systems as Alira pointed out key locations where Drachnid ships had been spotted. "We'll split into two teams," she explained. "Team A will head towards the mining operations to gather intel while Team B will stay behind as backup in case things go south." The crew nodded in agreement, though Alira noticed some apprehension on their faces. They were all aware of the risks involved. Skirmishes with Drachnid forces had escalated recently, and they could no longer rely on diplomatic channels that had proven ineffective. The mission begins. As night fell over Viridian Prime, Team A boarded their ship, the Vanguard. The vessel was sleek and equipped with advanced weaponry, an upgrade made possible by Rhea's relentless tinkering and modifications. Alira took her place at the helm while Yarrick settled into his position as tactical officer. Engaging stealth mode, Alira announced as she initiated the launch sequence. The Vanguard glided silently into space, cloaked from detection as they navigated towards the mining operations. The stars twinkled around them like distant memories of peace that now felt far out of reach. Entering target zone, Yarrick reported as he monitored their surroundings closely. Suddenly, Rhea's voice crackled through the intercom, breaking through the tension that enveloped them. "Captain. I'm detecting multiple Drachnid ships approaching from our starboard side." Alira's heart raced as she assessed their situation. "How many?" "Looks like 3 cruisers, definitely more than we anticipated," Rhea replied urgently. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Alira commanded, adrenaline surging through her veins. The Vanguard swerved sharply as Alira piloted them away from danger while Yarrick activated their weapon systems. "We can't engage them directly without risking our position. We need to gather intel first," Alira shouted back as she focused on avoiding enemy fire. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship as enemy projectiles exploded nearby, sending shockwaves through their vessel. "Shields holding at 70%. Yarrick reported grimly. Rhea's fingers flew over her console as she worked furiously to keep their systems operational while simultaneously trying to gather data on enemy movements. "I'm trying to get a lock on their communications. If we can intercept their orders." A moment of doubt. Alira gritted her teeth as she maneuvered through enemy fire. Doubt crept into her mind. Was this mission worth risking their lives? The Council had failed them time and again. Would this be another futile attempt at proving themselves? "Captain." Jarrek's voice broke through her thoughts. "We're running out of time. We need to make a decision." Alira took a deep breath, reminding herself of why they were there, not just for survival but for dignity and respect in a galaxy that had dismissed them for too long. "Rhea. Can you get us any intel before we retreat?" Alira asked urgently. "I'm almost there," Rhea replied breathlessly as she continued to work against time. Just then, an explosion rocked the ship again, this time more violently than before. "Shields down to 50%. Yarrick shouted as he struggled to maintain control amid chaos. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Alira commanded again while scanning for an escape route. In that moment of desperation, something shifted within her, a realization that they could no longer afford to be passive players in this cosmic drama unfolding around them. "Enough is enough," she declared fiercely. "We're not retreating without information." With renewed determination coursing through her veins, Alira made a bold decision. They would engage with one of the cruisers long enough to gather critical intelligence before making their escape. The turning point. As they closed in on one of the Drachnid cruisers, Alira felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her body, a mix of fear and exhilaration that pushed her forward into action. "Yarrick. Target their communication array," she commanded. Yarrick nodded and focused his aim on the cruiser's vulnerable systems while Rhea continued working feverishly at her console. With precise timing, Alira initiated an attack sequence just as Yarrick fired upon the cruiser's communication array, disabling it momentarily and allowing Rhea to intercept vital data streams flowing between Drachnid ships. "I've got it," Rhea exclaimed triumphantly as information flooded onto her screen. "I'm downloading everything I can." But before they could celebrate this small victory, alarms blared once more. A second cruiser had locked onto them with deadly intent. "Time's up. We need to get out now," Yarrick shouted urgently. Alira hesitated for only a moment before issuing commands for full-speed retreat while Rhea secured all collected data onto a secure drive. As they accelerated away from danger, Alira couldn't shake off a sense of foreboding settling deep within her chest. The galaxy was changing rapidly around them, and humanity was teetering on the brink of war. The aftermath. Once safely back at Viridian Prime, T-May disembarked from the Vanguard, adrenaline still coursing through their veins despite relief flooding over them at being back home. Elira gathered her crew together in a debriefing room where everyone wore expressions ranging from exhilaration to exhaustion after narrowly escaping confrontation with Drachnid forces. "What did we learn?" she asked gravely as she laid out holographic displays showcasing intercepted communications alongside maps detailing enemy movements across human territories. "We learned that they're planning coordinated strikes against our mining operations," Yarrick replied somberly while studying data closely displayed before him. "And we also learned that we cannot rely on anyone else for protection," Rhea added quietly but firmly, a sentiment echoed by all present in that room filled with uncertainty about what lay ahead for humanity amidst rising tensions across galaxies far beyond comprehension. In that moment, a shared understanding settled among them. This fight was no longer just about survival, it was about reclaiming humanity's place among stars once thought unreachable, and they were ready to take action against those who sought to undermine everything they stood for. The fracture deepens. The atmosphere on Viridian Prime was charged with a sense of urgency and dread. The recent council meeting had sent shockwaves through the human colonies, and the implications of Ambassador Chun-Li's declaration were beginning to take root. General Kellen Dray, a seasoned military strategist and leader of the human forces, stood in the command center, surrounded by his top advisors. The room was filled with holographic displays depicting troop movements, resource allocations, and potential threats from various alien factions. "General, we need to address the fallout from the council meeting," Lieutenant Mara Jack said, her brow furrowed with concern. "The Drachnid fleet is mobilizing near our borders, and we can't ignore their intentions any longer." Kellen nodded gravely. He was a tall man with a commanding presence, his graying hair betraying years of service in the military. "I understand the urgency, Mara. But we must remain strategic in our response. We can't afford to act rashly." The Council's response. News of humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Federation had spread like wildfire across the colonies. While some factions within the Federation dismissed it as an empty threat, others recognized it as a pivotal moment in galactic politics. The Council had convened again to discuss their next steps, but Kellen knew that their indecision would only embolden their adversaries. "General Dray," a voice called from behind him. It was Ambassador Tariq Lan, who had been working tirelessly to maintain diplomatic channels despite the growing tensions. "I just received word that several council members are advocating for a show of force against us." "Of course they are," Kellen replied bitterly. "They see us as an easy target now that we've withdrawn our support from their precious federation." Tariq shook his head. "We need to prepare for all possibilities. If they decide to act against us, we must be ready to defend our territories." Kellen turned back to the holographic displays, his mind racing with strategies and contingencies. "We need to gather intelligence on Drachnid movements immediately. I want surveillance drones deployed along our borders and reconnaissance teams sent out to monitor their fleets." The rising tide of conflict. As Kellen strategized, unrest began to brew among the human populace on Viridian Prime. Many citizens felt abandoned by the Galactic Federation and were beginning to question their leaders' decisions. Protests erupted in various sectors as civilians demanded action against perceived threats. In one of the crowded plazas, a group of demonstrators gathered with banners proclaiming, "Defend our home," and "No more patience." Their chants echoed through the streets as tensions flared between protesters and security forces. Elira Voss watched from a distance, her heart heavy with concern for her people. She had seen firsthand how quickly things could escalate into violence and knew that they needed unity more than ever. "Captain Voss," a voice called out from behind her. It was Yarrick Finn, who approached with urgency in his eyes. "We need to get these people under control before things spiral out of hand." Elira nodded but felt conflicted. "They have every right to be angry, Yarrick. We've been pushed into a corner for too long." "I understand that," Yarrick replied tersely. "But if we don't show strength now, we risk losing everything we've fought for. As Alira contemplated their next move, she felt a surge of determination rise within her. They couldn't allow fear or anger to dictate their actions, they needed to channel that energy into something constructive. "Let's organize a town hall meeting," Alira suggested decisively. "We'll address their concerns directly and remind them that we are stronger together." The town hall meeting. The following evening, Alira stood before a crowd gathered in the central square of Viridian Prime. The atmosphere was tense as citizens awaited her words, some hopeful for guidance while others remained skeptical about their leader's ability to protect them. "Thank you all for coming," Alira began, her voice steady despite the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. "I know these are uncertain times for all of us, times filled with fear and doubt about what lies ahead." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as she continued speaking passionately about unity and resilience in the face of adversity. "We have faced challenges before," she declared firmly. "We have fought against those who sought to undermine us, and we will do so again if necessary. But we cannot let anger divide us, instead, let it fuel our resolve." The crowd responded with cheers and applause, a flicker of hope igniting amidst uncertainty. "We will not be cowed by threats or intimidation," Alira continued, her voice rising above the noise. "We will stand together as one people, humanity united." As she concluded her speech, Alira felt a swell of pride at having inspired hope within her community. But deep down, she knew that words alone would not be enough, they needed tangible action. The gathering storm. Back in the command center, General Kellen Dray received reports from reconnaissance teams deployed along their borders. The situation was deteriorating rapidly, Drachnid ships were amassing in significant numbers near human territories. "Sir," Mara Jax reported urgently as she entered the room with data pads in hand. "We've confirmed that multiple Drachnid fleets are preparing for an offensive strike against our mining operations." Kellen's jaw tightened at this news. He had anticipated this escalation but hoped it wouldn't come so soon. "What's our current status?" "We have approximately 3 battalions ready for deployment," Mara replied while scrolling through data on her pad. "But if they launch an attack now, we may not have enough time to mobilize additional forces." Kellen weighed his options carefully. They could either prepare for immediate defense or attempt preemptive strikes against Drachnid positions. "We need to show them that we won't back down," he said decisively after considering their options. "Prepare our forces for immediate deployment," he ordered firmly. "And send word to Captain Voss, she'll lead one of our strike teams." Mara nodded and rushed off to relay orders while Kellen stared at the holographic map before him, a grim reminder of what lay ahead. The first strike. As night fell over Viridian Prime once more, Alira prepared her team for what would be their first real engagement since humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Federation. "Listen up," she called out as they gathered around her in the hangar bay of the Vanguard. "We're heading into hostile territory tonight. This is not just another mission, this is about defending our home." Her crew responded with nods and murmurs of agreement. Determination radiated from them like heat off sun-baked stones. "We'll be targeting Drachnid supply lines near Sector 12B, she explained while pointing at a holographic display showing enemy positions interspersed among asteroids and debris fields. "Our objective is clear, disrupt their operations and send a message that humanity will not be an easy target." As they prepared for launch, Alira felt an electric charge coursing through her veins, a mixture of fear and exhilaration at finally taking action against those who threatened everything she held dear. With engines roaring to life beneath them, Team A boarded the Vanguard once more, this time ready not just for survival but for retribution against those who sought to undermine humanity's place among stars. As they soared into space towards impending conflict, a sense of purpose filled Alira's heart, knowing that whatever awaited them out there would only serve to strengthen their resolve even further amidst chaos swirling beyond comprehension itself. The turning tide. The atmosphere in the command center of Viridian Prime was electric with anticipation. General Kellen Dray stood at the helm, flanked by his senior officers, as they prepared for what would be a pivotal moment in human history. The events of the past few weeks had escalated tensions to a boiling point, and now it was time for humanity to respond decisively. Status report. Kellen barked, his voice echoing off the walls as he surveyed the holographic displays flickering around him. Each screen showed a different facet of their military readiness, troop movements, supply lines, and enemy positions. "Sir, we have mobilized all available forces," Lieutenant Mara Jax reported, her fingers flying over her console. 3 battalions are ready for deployment, and we've received reports from our reconnaissance teams confirming that Drachnid ships are massing near our borders. Kellen nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. "We need to strike first. If we wait for them to attack, we'll be playing into their hands." The plan of attack. As Kellen strategized with his team, Alira Voss prepared her crew aboard the Vanguard. She had been tasked with leading one of the strike teams that would engage the Drachnid fleet head-on. The stakes were high, failure was not an option. "Listen up," Alira called out as her crew gathered in the hangar bay. "We're about to embark on a mission that could change the course of our future. Our objective is to intercept and disable key Drachnid ships before they can launch an offensive against our colonies." Yarrick Finn stood beside her, his expression serious. "We'll be facing overwhelming odds. We need to stick to our plan and work together if we want to succeed." Alira felt a rush of determination as she looked at her crew. Each member was skilled and dedicated, ready to fight for their home. "We've trained for this moment," she reminded them. "We know our strengths and weaknesses. Trust each other and trust yourselves." With engines roaring to life, the Vanguard launched into space, leaving Viridian Prime behind as they headed toward the heart of enemy territory. The stars stretched out before them like a sea of possibilities, and Alira felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. The first encounter. As they approached the designated coordinates, Alira's heart raced with anticipation. The holographic displays showed multiple Drachnid ships moving in formation, a menacing sight that sent chills down her spine. "Captain, we're detecting multiple enemy vessels ahead," Yarrick reported as he monitored their sensors closely. "They appear to be preparing for an offensive." Alira took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "Prepare for engagement," she commanded, her voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling within her. As they closed in on the Drachnid fleet, Alira could see their massive ships looming in the distance, reptilian behemoths bristling with weaponry that could obliterate anything in their path. "On my mark," Alira instructed as they entered firing range. 3, 2, 1, engage. The Vanguard erupted into action as Yarrick unleashed a barrage of fire upon the nearest Drachnid cruiser. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as their shots found their targets. "Direct hit." Yarrick shouted triumphantly as he continued firing at enemy vessels while Rhea Talon worked feverishly at her console to keep their systems operational. But just as victory seemed within reach, alarms blared throughout the ship, a warning that sent adrenaline coursing through everyone on board. "Captain! We've got incoming fire!" Rhea yelled as she struggled to maintain control over their shields. Alira's heart raced as she maneuvered the Vanguard, dodging enemy fire while returning shots at any Drachnid ship within range. "Keep us moving. We can't afford to stay still. The tide turns." The battle raged on as Alira and her crew fought valiantly against overwhelming odds. Despite being outnumbered, they held their ground, each member of Team A working seamlessly together under pressure. "Captain! I've managed to hack into their communication systems," Rhea exclaimed suddenly amidst the chaos. "I'm downloading tactical data now." "Good work, Rhea. Keep it coming," Alira shouted back as she focused on evading enemy fire while coordinating attacks with Yarrick. With Rhea's intel feeding them crucial information about Drachnid maneuvers, Alira began to formulate a new strategy, a way to turn this battle in humanity's favor. "Yarrick, target their command ship," she ordered decisively. If we take out their leader, we can disrupt their entire fleet. Yarrick nodded and adjusted his aim while Rhea continued feeding him data on enemy positions. With renewed determination coursing through them all, they launched an assault on the command ship, a massive vessel that loomed ominously in front of them. As they unleashed everything they had against it, explosions erupted across its hull, shaking the very fabric of space around them. "We're getting through," Yarrick shouted as another volley struck true. But just then, an alarm blared once more, a warning that sent chills down Alira's spine. "Captain! We've got incoming reinforcements!" Rhea cried out urgently. Alira's heart sank as she realized they were about to be overwhelmed by additional Drachnid forces pouring into the fray from nearby systems. "We need to retreat," Yarrick urged desperately as enemy ships began closing in around them. "No," Alira replied fiercely, determination burning bright within her chest. "We can't back down now. We're fighting for our future." The final push. With renewed resolve coursing through her veins, Alira made a bold decision: they would push forward despite being outnumbered and outgunned. "Rhea, can you create a diversion?" she asked urgently. "I can overload our weapon systems and create an electromagnetic pulse," Rhea suggested quickly. "It should disrupt their targeting systems long enough for us to make our move." "Do it," Alira commanded without hesitation. As Rhea worked furiously at her console, Alira focused on maintaining control over the ship while Yarrick continued firing at enemy vessels surrounding them. With a deafening roar, Rhea initiated the overload sequence. A brilliant flash of light erupted from the Vanguard, sending shockwaves rippling through space as it temporarily disabled nearby Drachnid ships' targeting systems. Now was their chance. "Go! Go! Go!" Alira shouted as she piloted them straight toward the command ship once more, this time with renewed vigor and purpose behind every maneuver. With precise timing and unwavering determination guiding her actions, the Vanguard surged forward into battle amidst chaos swirling around them like a tempest unleashed upon an unsuspecting world. The aftermath. As explosions lit up space around them, the Vanguard pressed onward toward victory against overwhelming odds. The tide had finally turned in humanity's favor amidst chaos swirling beyond comprehension itself. In that moment, amidst destruction and uncertainty, Alira knew one thing for certain: humanity would no longer be passive players in this cosmic drama. They were ready to reclaim their place among stars once thought unreachable, and whatever awaited them next would only serve to strengthen their resolve even further. The dawn of a new era. In the aftermath of the Galactic Council's dismissal of humanity's grievances, a palpable tension hung over the galaxy. The events that transpired in the Council chamber had set off a chain reaction, one that would reverberate across star systems and alter the course of history forever. As the dust settled on Viridian Prime, General Kellen Dray and Captain Alira Voss prepared for the inevitable confrontation that loomed on the horizon. The calm before the storm. The command center buzzed with activity as officers and soldiers rushed to finalize preparations for what was to come. Kellen stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the holographic displays that illuminated the room. Each flickering image represented a different aspect of their military readiness: troop movements, supply lines, and enemy positions. The weight of leadership pressed heavily upon him as he contemplated the choices that lay ahead. "General," Mara Jack said, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "We've received reports from our scouts indicating that Drachnid fleets are mobilizing near our borders. They're not taking our withdrawal lightly." Kellen nodded, his jaw clenched. "We need to counter their movements before they can strike. Prepare our forces for immediate deployment." Alira entered the command center, her expression resolute. "I've gathered my team and we're ready to launch an offensive against any Drachnid ships that threaten our colonies." "Good," Kellen replied, appreciating her determination. "We need to show them that humanity will not back down." As they finalized their plans, Alira couldn't shake off a feeling of foreboding. The galaxy was changing rapidly, and humanity's place within it felt increasingly precarious. They were no longer just defending their territories, they were standing at the precipice of war. The first strike. As night fell over Viridian Prime, Alira and her crew prepared for their mission aboard the Vanguard. The atmosphere was tense as they gathered in the hangar bay, each member acutely aware of the stakes involved. "Listen up," Alira called out, her voice steady despite the anxiety in the air. "Our objective is clear: we will intercept any Drachnid vessels attempting to breach our borders. We cannot allow them to think they can intimidate us." Yarrick Finn stood beside her, his expression serious. "We've trained for this moment. Trust each other and trust yourselves." With engines roaring to life beneath them, the Vanguard launched into space, leaving Viridian Prime behind as they headed toward enemy territory. The stars stretched out before them like a vast ocean, each one a reminder of what was at stake. As they approached their target area, Yarrick monitored their sensors closely. "Captain, we're detecting multiple Drachnid ships ahead," he reported urgently. Alira's heart raced as she assessed their situation. "Prepare for engagement," she commanded. The Vanguard surged forward into battle against overwhelming odds. The Drachnid fleet loomed large before them, a menacing sight that sent chills down her spine. "On my mark," Alira instructed as they entered firing range. 3, 2, 1, engage. The ship erupted into action as Yarrick unleashed a barrage of fire upon the nearest Drachnid cruiser. Explosions lit up space as their shots found their targets. "Direct hit." Yarrick shouted triumphantly as he continued firing at enemy vessels while Rhea Talon worked feverishly at her console to keep their systems operational. But just as victory seemed within reach, alarms blared throughout the ship, a warning that sent adrenaline coursing through everyone on board. "Captain, we've got incoming fire," Rhea yelled as she struggled to maintain control over their shields. Alira's heart raced as she maneuvered the Vanguard, dodging enemy fire while returning shots at any Drachnid ship within range. "Keep us moving. We can't afford to stay still." The turning point. The battle raged on as Alira and her crew fought valiantly against overwhelming odds. Despite being outnumbered, they held their ground, each member of Team A working seamlessly together under pressure. "Captain, I've managed to hack into their communication systems," Rhea exclaimed suddenly amidst the chaos. "I'm downloading tactical data now." "Good work, Rhea. Keep it coming," Alira shouted back as she focused on evading enemy fire while coordinating attacks with Yarrick. With Rhea's intel feeding them crucial information about Drachnid maneuvers, Alira began to formulate a new strategy, a way to turn this battle in humanity's favor. "Yarrick, target their command ship," she ordered decisively. "If we take out their leader, we can disrupt their entire fleet." Yarrick nodded and adjusted his aim while Rhea continued feeding him data on enemy positions. With renewed determination coursing through them all, they launched an assault on the command ship, a massive vessel that loomed ominously in front of them. As they unleashed everything they had against it, explosions erupted across its hull, shaking the very fabric of space around them. "We're getting through," Yarrick shouted as another volley struck true. But just then, an alarm blared once more, a warning that sent chills down Alira's spine. "Captain, we've got incoming reinforcements," Rhea cried out urgently. Alira's heart sank as she realized they were about to be overwhelmed by additional Drachnid forces pouring into the fray from nearby systems. "We need to retreat," Yarrick urged desperately as enemy ships began closing in around them. "No," Alira replied fiercely, determination burning bright within her chest. "We can't back down now. We're fighting for our future." With renewed resolve coursing through her veins, Alira made a bold decision: they would push forward despite being outnumbered and outgunned. "Rhea, can you create a diversion?" she asked urgently. I can overload our weapons systems and create an electromagnetic pulse, Rhea suggested quickly. It should disrupt their targeting systems long enough for us to make our move. Do it. Alira commanded without hesitation. As Rhea worked furiously at her console, Alira focused on maintaining control over the ship while Yarrick continued firing at enemy vessels surrounding them. With a deafening roar, Rhea initiated the overload sequence. A brilliant flash of light erupted from the Vanguard, sending shockwaves rippling through space as it temporarily disabled nearby Drachnid ships' targeting systems. Now was their chance. Go! 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 Alira shouted as she piloted them straight toward the command ship once more, this time with renewed vigor and purpose behind every maneuver. With precise timing and unwavering determination guiding her actions, the Vanguard surged forward into battle amidst chaos swirling around them like a tempest unleashed upon an unsuspecting world. The aftermath. As explosions lit up space around them, the Vanguard pressed onward toward victory against overwhelming odds. The tide had finally turned in humanity's favor amidst chaos swirling beyond comprehension itself. In that moment, amidst destruction and uncertainty, Alira knew one thing for certain. Humanity would no longer be passive players in this cosmic drama. They were ready to reclaim their place among stars once thought unreachable, and whatever awaited them next would only serve to strengthen their resolve even further. As dawn broke over Viridian Prime once more, the galaxy held its breath, awaiting news of what came next in this unfolding saga where patience had finally run dry, and humanity stood poised on the brink of something extraordinary.